Hello, 7th graders, and welcome to Math Weekly number 1, where our focus skill will be to understand sampling. So to begin to understand sampling, let's first begin with a definition. Sampling is the process of studying a population by selecting a part of the population to question, observe, or test. If you were to put this in your own words, you may say that it's doing a survey, an observation, or other test to determine the truth about a population. The truth, learning the truth about the population is the goal of sampling. When a representative sample is chosen, it is said that the sample will reflect the truth about the entire population. A sample that does not reflect the entire population is said to be biased. A sample is most likely a representative sample if it is a random sample. So let's work to define a random sample. A random sample is choosing a sample in which everyone in the population had an equal chance of being selected. So for example, if the cafeteria would like to ask the student body their opinions on lunch choices, they may not be able to ask every single student in the whole population, but they may be able to randomly choose a part of the population to question. If they are to do this randomly, they would need to put every single person's name into a hat or onto a list or in some type of selection process and then randomly choose people from that. But it's very important to understand that the random sample must choose from everybody, so everybody had a chance. So let's look at some examples and non-examples of random sampling. So we're going to consider that we're going to try to use random sampling to determine the favorite sport of all students within a school. And I'm going to show you some examples of random sampling as to how we can do that and some examples of non-random sampling, or also known as bias sampling, to determine that favorite sport. So an example of random sampling, so this would be a good way of sampling students, would be putting everyone in the school's name in a bag one time and pulling 50 names out of the bag to participate. This will be considered a random sample because everyone had a chance of being selected, and everybody's chance was equal because they each had their name in there only one time. Another way that we could select a random sampling to determine the favorite sport would be picking every third name from the school's alphabetical mailing list. So assuming that everybody's name is on that list just one time, and picking every third one would be a random way of picking that. So both of these would be examples of representative samples because they used random sampling. Now let's look at some non-examples of random sampling, also known as bias sampling. If we ask all the students on the basketball team, so if we only ask students on the basketball team, is that likely what everybody thinks? Probably not, because if they're on the basketball team, they probably like basketball. So this would not be a good representation of what everyone in the school thinks. Letting each coach pick one player from their team. Whereas this would give more variety than this first option, it would not include every single person in the school, because remember, that's our population, the school, because not everyone in a school plays a sport. So these are examples of non-random sampling because they would be very biased to certain groups of people. So let's practice. Say you want to survey students in your school about their exercise habits. Tell whether the following will give you a random sample. So here's option 1. At lunchtime, you stand by a vending machine. You survey every student who buys something from the machine. Would this be a random or a biased sample? This would be a biased sample because not everyone came to the machine to randomly get picked. Now let's look at another option. You select every 10th student on an alphabetical list of the students in your school. You survey the selected students in their first period classes. This would be an example of a random sample. Here's the details that led us to this discovery. Because it says the list of students, which means everybody's on there, and we're randomly picking every 10th person. So everyone had a chance, and it was selected at random. So let's summarize what we've learned. We've learned that sampling chooses a random group of individuals within a population to learn the truth. Random sampling is important because it creates a representative sample. When random sampling is not used, the sampling is biased and useless.